Hello, it's Michael. Welcome to week 8. So we're almost getting to the wire, meaning we've only got a couple more weeks left. And this week, just to let you know, the pacing is intentional. That we're going to do 3 weeks because this particular journey that you've been on, has taken pretty much since week 2, and we're going to finish it off this week. And I just want to make sure that the particular lessons along the way or the concepts along the way are what you really take into this. I understand that many of you are used to being able to draw things out and many are not, but I'm focusing mainly on what kind of ideas that you've represented here and why are they there. So there's a lot more why in these activities than what is literally on the page. So one thing I do see as some maybe tips that I want to not focus on too much. I saw this just a recent comment. One thing we are not talking about, by the way, is free text searching. Free text searching is its own world of information architecture because you're dealing with a set of how do you indicate when people are on the right track or not. There's a lot of interactive patterns around that are really interesting, but they're not important to the main goal, which is mostly discovery. People are coming to your site. You have data to serve up. What you're missing right now is metadata, and that is a subject for next week. Metadata meaning things like popularity or interest or anything to do with how people behave or how they interact with your site. So we'll get to that next week. In this one, we don't even need to mention it. In fact, there are many things you don't need to worry about for this exercise, because all I really am interested in is how do you help people find things within the data set. And last week we talked about verbs. So this week, I think you've seen some good examples, and hopefully you're getting a little more used to how Mural is aiding us or hopefully not hindering us from taking data that's not very easy to figure out. Like it's the wrong shape, it's different things, it's let's call unstructured, and we're trying to learn how to give it some structure so that it makes some sense. So in this case, one thing that you might have seen is that some of these get lined up and some of these don't. These are just little tricks I'm doing if you're ever wondering what's behind the scenes of why is some things, like for example, you guys did a pretty nice job here of presenting your initial wireframes. This week will get even more crowded, so you'll have to figure out like how to play nicely with each other. And I want that to be like a experience that you're having in this class, because I think you're all going to have to do that as an information architect. You can't just rule the world. You have to collaborate with others, and you have to sort of show rather than tell. So what did I learn from this week? Well, for one, the reason why I'm asking about clickable elements, and almost everyone focused on something that happened when you moused over. Now, the problem with that is that doesn't exist in a wireframe. You don't get to mouse over anything. So what I was really hoping for and didn't get a lot of is positioning. Where is it on the screen? We talked a little bit about icons, which was all good. But the reason why I'm talking about this is because this week you have to actually show what happens when you click on something. And I think that's really critical to your how well did you do. Right now you're trying to prove to me that I've organized this stuff in a reasonable manner, right? I can discover something. I can, for example, go in and out of records without getting lost. And I think you're going to find this a real big challenge. And that's fine. That's my point, is that you're going to find some of these things hard to do. So hopefully the journey you've taken so far has given you some material to work with. Well, let's say a couple of tips here. I think everyone has maybe discovered that I really do want to see your data record. That's going to be a big part of the grade for this particular example. So don't lose track of all that HTML structure work that you did. Many may have found that you needed something before that, like some sort of overview, and that's reasonable. So this overview to detail view is probably going to be, for every one of you, the journey that you're going to depict in your storyboard that's happening this week. You're going to see some stuff, you may change the view of that stuff. You're going to probably look at a detail and want to go back and change your mind. And this is a very, very common flow. You probably do this every single day without even thinking about it. But the information architecture of that, making it easy for you to go in and out of context, is really important. And all the words, so I'm really, really interested in words, right? I'm really interested in this data. These words, don't ever worry about, and this is fine, Joseph, I'm glad you changed this up, because I don't have any interest in visuals right now. This is still going to be very much black and white. Color, again, is not needed for this. In fact, the reason why we don't use any color is that it can lead to people focusing on the color rather than focusing on the words. Really, these words and what happens when you click on one is the whole goal right now. What things you show here at different in different situations is the point here. And then lastly, you've probably seen the most interesting point, which is if someone clicks on something, what do you show first? This is the Google dilemma, or not dilemma, it's what they've spent all their money, and their claim to fame is sorting things in a list. So maybe in the first week, you remember me saying this. Everything is a list. These are lists, right? They might have different shapes and sizes, but ultimately it's a list. And in that list, you're going to need to sort things from one end to the other. And you shouldn't be able to do that too effectively now, because your list sorting is going to be, you don't know what, this is a good example, right? This is a great thing to show, but what does relevant mean? It's not in your data set. You don't know what relevancy is. You probably know the date it was added to the database. You might know another thing about dates or something. A number has to be used to sort. And so we're going to talk, and that's again going to be next week afterwards. We're going to talk about how do you attach that number to a word. And that's when we get into even more interesting topics. So, but for now, I hope you appreciate the extra week. You know how we usually do things in 2 weeks. What I found was, I think this took a little bit longer, but this state, if we've discussed it, please do take a look at my recommendations. I think you've all actually reacted really well to the kind of feedback that I've been giving you. So that's terrific. But once you've locked into a particular view, you're going to, well, let me get to week 8 to show you. Week 8 is pretty much open-ended. Where are we? 8, storyboarding. Yep, it's a big blank thing, so you all can add storyboards, and the storyboards read from left to right, and each of these has a change from someone clicking on something. And you don't have to indicate to me what they clicked on. I should be able to tell, and that's why the what's clickable, sometimes what's visible, or what the actual selection was, you might highlight with a line underneath it or something to show me that I clicked on it. That's really all that's needed for this. Is I just want to know, where am I? Where can I go? What happens as I go through this? And you're using this as the information architect to demonstrate to anyone, really, hey, this is why I've organized things using these words in this way. And here's how it's helpful to get somebody to where we want them to go, because you're helping them along their journey of finding your data. So we will start, and this is something I'd like you to do early enough if you can, so I can just make sure, give it a glance, that your flow makes sense. So a flow diagram is nicely discussed in this particular article. I like this because it's super simple. I think it really talks about, on this page, here's what I see and here's what I can do. And here's when I do this, it goes to this other thing. And if anyone's used to doing sort of boxes and arrow diagrams, this is a slightly simpler version. It's not as noisy. It really is just something to sketch through. Hey, I selected this, and then I show a page, and then from this I select this. And as I said, the proper probable flow is something to do with going into a detail view, going out of a detail view, and then maybe I'm not interested in, for example, any e-commerce flows, right? You're not adding something to cart. You're not doing anything like that. Even though those may be very good ideas, we're still exploring what are the words and concepts that you used to organize your data. And those words and concepts, the words are 90% of the work, right? The words are really why you're here. The words and how you've structured your HTML and your hierarchy, so people know that what they're seeing is something that they wanted to see. That's really important. We talked in a couple of things about changing the hierarchy depending on what people have chosen. I've never really done that, but experiment with it. You can talk about that in this flow, and if you get this done early enough, I give you some feedback on it. Hopefully that helps you not spend too much time doing the repeat. There's a lot of repetition in this flow, as you might imagine. Only one thing will change pretty much. Maybe some major areas need to be designed or shown. Super cool, but as I said, it's pretty repetitive for the most part, so it's nice to do it in this low fidelity way first, and that is a theme. Hopefully you've seen all these methods that we've shown are ways of doing something in a lower fidelity to get feedback and to be able to iterate quickly, because there's really no problem going straight into high fidelity. The problem is usually when it comes to, is it effective? Like, why are things in a particular place rather than fitting them in a particular place? That fitting, by the way, is what we talked about a little bit with how many things are there to choose. You can't fit every possibility on the page, although I was just looking at something that really did, I think it was eBay or something, that really does try to cram every possible aspect on a page. That does, it's powerful, but it's also slightly, it's a little bit of work for the user. Anyway, we don't have to get too deeply into this, because the goal of all this is the final, where you're just going to look at someone else's work, their organizational work, whether in a product out there, and you're going to try to look for, how did they do this stuff? How did they organize things? How did they make it easy for you to get around? So this will end and the final deliverable is going to be posted to hopefully Mural, or you can post it wherever, or I'm sorry, not Mural, hopefully Figma, and you're just going to post the link to Figma. For me, if there's any difficulty in that, just ping me. We can, figure out a good way to get that to me. And that is going to be all for week 8. And then weeks 9 and 10 are these bigger concepts, and as well as finally talking about some metadata. And that brings us to a close with the final, which is going to be more we'll discuss next week. So for this week, hopefully that makes sense, and well done, everyone. I'm really enjoying myself. I hope you are too. If you're having any questions, I'm available also to talk in person. But hopefully this gets you a little bit of context as to what's going on. You let me know. If we need an in-person meeting, I am more than happy to set that up in a time and situation that you guys like. All right, cheers.